you have a certain someone in your life that you want to get rid of without suspicious eyes falling on you, and you have the money to pull it off, just buy them one of these jewels that we'll be talking about. This is Nexus, and on today's list, I'm counting down the top 10 cursed jewelry that you would never want to wear. For this list, I went to several pawn shops looking for some jewelry to buy my wife in hopes that they'd be cursed. But $500 later, she's still here, and that's when I got to thinking that I need to dream big if I want to pull this one off. Before I get started, if you're new to this channel, be sure to subscribe to get new content similar to this every day. And remember, be sure to hit that like button. Number 10. The one ring in real life. We all know the saying, one ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. But that's all just fiction, right? Well, maybe not. A Roman ring was found in 1785 near Silchester, which is a village about 5 miles north of Basingstoke in the English county of Hampshire. But way back when, the village had a different name, Caliva Atrebatum, due mainly because the Romans had invaded England and claimed it all for themselves. Inscribed in Latin on the golden ring was the phrase, Sinitianis, live well in God. Perplexing archaeologists to discover what exactly that meant, they'd catch their lucky break when a tablet was discovered at a site known as Dwarf's Hill. Written on the tablet was the tale of a man going by the name of Silvianus, telling the ancient god Nodens that someone named Sinitianus had stolen his ring. The tablet then went on to say that anyone birthed with that very name would be born cursed, until the thief brought the stolen ring back to the temple where Nodin was worshipped. Good thing Sinitianus isn't a top 10 for boys at the moment. The connection with this ring to pop culture's favorite Lord of the Rings franchise is that the author of the trilogy, J.R.R. Tolkien, was an Anglo-Saxon professor at Oxford in 1929 when an archaeologist who pieced together the tale of the ring and the tablet asked Tolkien about the name of the god on the tablet and what he knew about it. From there, only one can imagine what that discovery sparked in Tolkien's mind. And the rest is history for fans of fantasy alike. Number 9. The Blue Diamond. Coming in at number 9 is a piece of rock that no one knows where it currently is, and whose very existence has been brought to question several times before. This cursed tale begins in 1989, when a janitor from Thailand, employed by the Saudi royal family, broke into the bedroom of Prince Faisal bin Fahd and stole a lot of jewelry, including the alleged blue diamond. Hiding his loot in a vacuum cleaner bag and smuggling them to Thailand, the thief almost got away with it before the Saudi authorities tipped off the Thai police of the robbery and arrested the janitor. But unfortunately for them, the thief had already sold off some of the jewels. Returning what was left of his attempted cash grab, the Saudi royal family quickly noticed that the blue diamond wasn't there and that about half of the returned jewels were in fact fake. It only gets sketchier when you factor in the murders and disappearances of the Saudi diplomats and businessmen who were personally flown to Bangkok to investigate on behalf of the royal family the circumstances surrounding the robbery in attempts to get the blue diamond back. Shockingly, to this date, the diamond hasn't popped up anywhere, and with all the deaths attributed to it, the curse of the blue diamond seemingly only comes to fruition if you ever deal with the big rock illegally. Number 8. The Lydian Hoard. This next entry comes off as a side quest in an open-world fantasy role-playing game gone bad. The Lydian Hoard was part of King Croesus' treasure, dating all the way back to 547 BC. It consisted of expensive plates, pots, golden pieces, and of course, jewelry. But it wasn't until its discovery in 1965 in Western Turkey that the curse kicked in. Found in the tomb of a princess who, to this day, remains unknown, the tomb was ransacked by looters who got away with 150 relics. Joke's on them though, as almost all of them either got sick, had some serious bouts of bad luck, or straight up died, Coincidence or curse? That's the golden question for this entire list, and it's only going to get weirder from here. Number 7. The Regent. Mined in India in the early 1700s, this beauty of a rock was comfortably stolen from the mine in which it was discovered in by a slave who hid it inside a big old cut he gave himself on his leg. Per an arrangement the slave had with an English sea captain to smuggle the Regent out of the country, things were looking pretty good for the guy before the captain drowned him and sold the jewel and kept all the money to himself. But like a prologue scene from a horror film, the slave cursed the gem just as he was swallowing water for air. After exchanging hands between owners, the rock finally found a home when the French regent Philippe II of Orleans bought it in 1717, naming it after himself. However, the regent would be stolen during the French Revolution, only to find itself placed in the handle of the sword of the one and only Napoleon Bonaparte. Excuse my French, please. And well, look how that guy's military career turned out in the end. It seems that all curses attributed to diamonds end when they're placed in the ownership and display of a museum, which we'll get more into later. But in the case of the Regent, the sword it was placed in is now on display at the world-famous Louvain Art Museum. Number 6. The Saucy Diamond. And now we're getting into the more familiar territory of violent curses associated with expensive jewelry that's traded hands throughout history. Right off the bat, the Saucy Diamond Curse states that a violent death will be brought onto anyone who owns the rock. Mined in India and being placed on the crowns of English and French kings starting in the 14th century, which includes Charles the Bold, Charles I, and perhaps most famously, France's King Louis XVI. These royal monarchs all met grisly deaths, including getting guillotined all shortly after coming into possession of the Saucy Diamond. But the curse just didn't affect monarchs, as history states that those who worked for these kings couldn't escape the diamond's curse. Particularly a courier for Henry IV, who, while transporting the diamond, was robbed and murdered, but gave his life protecting the stone when he swallowed it, and it was later removed during an autopsy. Well, okay then. The curse seems to have been lifted, as it no longer sits on a crown, but rather is safely displayed now at the Louvain. Number 5. The Black Prince's Ruby. This one we've all seen before, as it's placed smack dab in front of England's imperial state crown. Despite its name, it's not actually a ruby, but rather a red spinel. The curse for it begins back in the 14th century, when the stone belonged to the Sultan of Granada, who was stabbed to death by the King of Castile, Pedro the Cruel, after he and his men conquered the region the Sultan had ruled. From there, Pedro the Cruel took the gem, but his reign of his newly conquered lands was attacked by his half-brother. Needing assistance, Pedro turned to Edward the Black Prince, a knight with a strong warlike reputation, for help. After defeating Pedro's half-brother, Edward was gifted the spinel as a way of saying thanks. That actually ended up being a bad gift for the great knight though, as he quickly contracted some unknown disease that killed him 9 years later. From there, the jewel passed from royalty to royalty, as so many others on this list has done, going to Henry V, who wore the jewel at the Battle of Agincourt in 1415 and almost died, to Richard III, who was rumored to have been wearing it at the Battle of Bosworth, where he, spoiler, was killed. But any curse the rock has seems to have been lying dormant for generations, as no current royal family member seen with it on their heads has died yet from mysterious circumstances. Number 4. The Kohinoor Diamond. With this next gem on our list, if you're a woman who finds herself wearing it, don't worry, you're safe. But if you're a man who also happens to be a king, then you might want to yank it off of your head before it's too late for you. Because according to Hindu folklore, a description for this diamond is basically one giant warning sign that says, he who owns this diamond will own the world, but will also know all its misfortunes. Only God or woman can wear it with impunity. Case in point, the men who possessed this diamond all met some gruesome ends, with battles being fought to own it. Leaders from all walks of ancient life, from Hindu to Mongolian to Persian and even Afghan and Sikh rulers all tried to claim it for their own. And when they did, they only found themselves meeting some sort of horrific death. It wasn't until 1849, after a treaty was signed by India that annexed Punjab to the British, that the stone was given ownership to a woman, Queen Victoria. But the curse didn't stop there. As the jewel was being transported from India to England on a ship, an alleged outbreak of cholera happened on the ship. A 12-hour storm raged the waters in which it was sailing on, and for 6 months, it didn't make it to its new home of England, because someone left it in the pocket of a waistcoat that a servant found later on. But it did finally make it to the UK, where today it's kept at the Tower of London Jewel House. Number 3. The Black Arloff Diamond. This diamond's curse, as you'll soon find out, seems to bring death to its owners not from an enemy, but from themselves. Legend has it that this diamond was stolen by a monk who, upon seeing it being used as one of the eyes of the Hindu god Brahma at a shrine in Pondicherry, India, just knew he had to have it apparently. From there, things just get dark. The diamond was eventually brought into the ownership of a Russian princess, going by the name of Nadia Arloff, who, as the tale goes, committed suicide by jumping off a building after gaining possession of the precious gem. When the diamond was brought stateside in 1932 by J.W. Paris, he soon followed as well, killing himself by jumping off a New York skyscraper. This macabre trend continued for the next owners of the cursed rock, who were once again Russian princesses. Only months apart did these two women meet the same grisly end as the other owners, jumping to their deaths from buildings in Rome. In an attempt to break the curse, a jeweler cut the diamond into 3 separate pieces, which seems to have worked, as no one who has since owned it has found themselves committing suicide. Number 2. The Delhi Purple Sapphire. Coming in at number 2 on this list, the last owner of the Delhi Purple Sapphire seemed to know this rock was bad luck, and did what they could to prevent those who came across it having the same fate as its previous owners. Looted by a British soldier named Colonel W. Ferris in 1857 during the Indian Mutiny and brought back to England, Ferris would eventually find himself going bankrupt, and after inheriting it after his father's death, so did Ferris's son. He then sold it to a writer named Edward Aaron Allen, who suffered a trail of bad luck so bad that he gave the gem away to his friends. Thing is, his friends also suffered the same string of unfortunateness, with devastation such as suicides and personal disasters, like a singer who permanently lost her singing voice, which led to each friend giving the cursed jewelry back to Aaron Allen. To see to it that the curse wouldn't hurt anyone else, Aaron Allen would eventually package the thing up inside 7 boxes and mail it off to his family banker, with specific instructions that the jewelry wouldn't be allowed to be opened back up until 33 years after his own death. Well, try more like less than a year. When Aaron Allen's daughter donated her father's cursed diamond to London's Natural History in 1943, along with a letter written by her father that warned any potential owners against handling the jewel directly themselves, stating whoever shall then open it shall first read out this warning, and then do as he pleases with the jewel. My advice to him or her is to cast it into the sea. Since then, the diamond has been on display at the museum, with no strange strings of misfortune surrounding it. Number 1. The Hope Diamond. The proverbial cursed diamond that needs no introduction. I'm just going to jump straight into some of the more well-known misfortunes that this 45.52 carat rock has reaped throughout the ages for its owners. It starts with his first owner, a French merchant named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, who sold the stone to King Louis XIV, who would later on die from gangrene. From there, it was eventually inherited by King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, who met a grisly end of having their heads lopped off during the French Revolution. Next, the Hope Diamond claimed the life of its next owner, Princess de Lamballe, who was beaten to death by a mob and had her head put on a spike. The next owner, Jacques Collet, committed suicide. It just keeps getting worse and worse, with more murders, suicides, and strange and unforeseen deaths surrounding those of the upper echelon, who came in possession of the diamond, such as Simon Monthorise, whose entire family died along with him in a carriage crash. But in more recent years, perhaps the most famous string of bad luck to come with the Hope Diamond has to be Evelyn McLean, a mining heiress who bought the rock back in 1911. What would follow would be nothing short of tragedy. Her son was killed in a car crash, her daughter died of an overdose, and her husband would leave her for the sister of a Hollywood actress, and eventually go insane and be committed to a mental hospital, where he would ultimately die. McLean herself would eventually die of pneumonia, and the Hope Diamond was bought by its final owner, world-renowned jeweler Harry Winston, who donated it to the Smithsonian in 1958, where it draws the eyes of 7 million visitors a year, curse-free. Well, that's it for this list. Like I always say, don't forget to drop a like down below, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys.